There's so many opinions. The better you do, the more of them there are. And if you try to make everybody happy, you're not going to end up happy with the direction you're going. So I think really figuring out where your priorities are and making them happen, making them a reality. That would be my advice, because the noise gets louder and louder the further along that you got.
Welcome to the Better Breeder Chronicles, brought to you by Easy Whelp Premium Whelping Boxes. Elevate your breeding program with Easy Whelp. In today's episode, we visit with Kristi Green of Knockout Chihuahuas. Located outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, Kristi Green has become a prominent breeder in the Chihuahua breed. In what is a difficult breed to breed, she's overcome many challenges to breed nearly 100 American champions. That includes multiple national specialty, best in show, and Westminster winners, plus several #1 dogs, and most of them breeder owner handled. Join me now in welcoming the master of knockout, Kristi Green. Kristi, welcome to the show. I'm excited for you to share the knockout story with us today. If you would, take us back to your beginnings in dogs. How did you get started in purebred dogs?
So I kind of started in dogs accidentally. I had bought a little Chihuahua from really kind of just a pet breeder. And, I knew I wanted a dog. I knew I wanted a purebred dog, but I didn't really know what that meant. So I found this puppy, and I probably should have known better because the breeder had to take the crate apart to get the puppy out of the crate so that she could give it to me, and it peed on me. And it didn't really matter. I was in love. So I take this puppy home, and she was really, really intelligent. She was a great little dog, but like nobody got to see it. When they came over, she'd hide in the corner. And as she got older, she kind of got diagnosed with some different health issues. And I kept thinking, like, I love this dog, but I want another one that doesn't have all the issues. And so I started looking into it. It actually was really kind of hard to find a breeder that was sort of checking the boxes in Chihuahuas. Somebody that was, focused on health, but also conformation. Somebody that, really cared about the temperaments of the dogs. And the more that I looked into it, there was sort of room for that, I guess, so to speak. And so I thought, well, I'm going to make my own. So, in my research, I found out, well, I should get a show dog. And so, at the time I was 23, 22, and I started contacting breeders looking for my first show dog. They all pretty much told me, go away, you're young, you won't be here very long. And so I ended up getting my first little Chihuahua from another breeder kind of in the Colorado area, and they showed, but really more just bred pets, and they sold me a little dog, and he was my first champion. He was also my first group winner. And I guess I was just kind of hooked, and in that process of showing the first dog, I found out like, oh, I actually kind of really enjoy this. And from there, it was like, okay, where do I want to go? And I really did want to create something that was recognizable and my own.
You really got into showing because of the breeding rather than the other way around.
Yeah. It kind of was like a, you should check this box.
Okay.
I was interested in making a happy, healthy family pet. Really, honestly, just for myself at first. Like, I was like, I want this, but better. And so I started showing because it was like what you're supposed to do.
So as you're making your first breedings, trying to breed that perfect Chihuahua, was there any event or what was kind of the impetus to jump into breeding on a larger, more prolific level?
It kind of just followed the natural flow of going from like, I want to breed a dog that is X to realizing how difficult it actually is to breed a dog that is all of these things. And I'm still kind of trying, it's a work in progress. I feel like I realized that it was going to take me a lot of time. And really I think if I ever breed that perfect dog, I'll hang it up and I'll be perfectly happy.
So when you were getting started, did you have mentors or were you really just kind of doing it on your own?
I attempted to find mentors initially and sort of got met with a lot of roadblocks again. I think a lot of people were really sort of put off by the fact that I was pretty young and didn't have any history in dogs. I really came to dogs without any background at all. I had a little pet and a little dog that I had finished. I ended up really kind of meeting the people that wound up being my mentors by going to a national specialty. And I had gone there really just to see dogs and see if I liked what I thought I liked in pictures, and I didn't. And so I ended up going a different direction, and those dogs are still in my program today.
So who were those early mentors and the breeders behind your dogs today?
So Darwin Delaney is probably of Dartan Chihuahuas. He was probably the biggest influence that I had. I met him at that very first national that I went to, and I had fallen in love with a little male that was shown by Lynn Hurd that was actually out of one of Darwin Delaney's top stud dogs. And that was sort of the dog that I was like, that's I want that. Like that it had this temperament and this breed character and just he moved well, he was adorable, he was compact and I'm like that's what I want right there. So really I would say Lynn Hart and I became friends from those shows and then Darwin really kind of started encouraging me. I saw him at a few other specialties and it sort of just naturally happened.
Were they a big part of your career in dogs over an extended period of time as well?
I would say ebbed and flowed. I lived in the middle of nowhere in Colorado, so I didn't get to spend a lot of time with them or nearly as much as I would have liked. When I was really becoming more active, Darwin was kind of winding down. And so I got to go, sort of sit at the feet of one of the greats, so to speak, a few times in their house and then lots of phone conversations. And he really did shape my view and attitude toward the breed extensively. I would say he was the biggest influence.
So go into that just a little bit deeper. What was that impact on you?
He would be really simplistic about the things that he would say. Like one of the things that he said to me really early on that has stuck with me is, Christy, without eyes and ears, a Chihuahua, she cannot be. And that's so simple, but it's so true about breed type and the breed. It's so easy to kind of lose those things, and then, you don't have as much of a chihuahua anymore. He was always very outspoken about the fact that they should have good temperaments, which is, again, one of my biggest things, going into it. I wanted them to be able to be good family pets. I didn't want them to be hiding in the corner when somebody came over, and they don't really make good show dogs either. But, just very simplistic statements I feel like were the most impactful from him. And as much as he knew, he spent a lot of time listening, like letting me work my thoughts out. And I think I really appreciated that. So I think that went a long way.
So beginning with your foundation with the Darton bloodline, how did you create your family of Chihuahuas?
Going back to how I actually sort of started working with that bloodline, I had purchased a little bitch from another kind of more pet breeder. It had one or two Dartan dogs back behind it. And they had told me, well, you can probably finish her, but she's going to be too small to breed. But you can, have full registration, take your chances. So I bought that little bitch. Her name was Leah. And I finished Leah at the Phoenix Chihuahua Club. Darwin was there. I actually got to show Sparky for him. And, I showed this dog for Darwin. I won best of variety. I think he won best in specialty with his other dog. And I asked him after I had shown this dog, I said, can I breed my bitch to him? And he said yes. And I, sent my bitch off in, a box, which we used to do. We no longer seem to do that. Sent her off to get bred. And she came back and she was pregnant and had three girls. And those three girls really wound up being my foundation. Knockout Fireball is in every single one of my pedigrees almost, and she's just turned 13, still completely healthy. And that was sired by the Dartan on Fire Again dog.
So those were 3 litter mates that were your foundation?
Yeah, and actually, I shouldn't say all 3. They're, the 2 Smooth Coat sisters were behind all of my dogs at this point, pretty much.
So then starting with those dogs, what were your next steps?
So my approach always was that you didn't really know what you had if you had too much of anything. So I tried to breed those 2 sisters in a way that I got to see what they could produce. The one bitch wasn't very good. It was actually Darwin that told me, you should breed her anyway. She's got some nice things about her. And I bred her and I got a son out of her, which his name is Captain America, Knockout Captain America. And he actually, at this point, I would say is probably number 7 or 8 top producing sire in breed history. So he was kind of where I worked down from that bitch, which was Knockout Firecracker. And then Knockout Fireball Piper, I got I multiple sons and daughters from her. She was the dam of my first Best in Show winner, dam of at least one national specialty winner's bitch. I can't remember if there was more than one, but top producing champion of 7 Chihuahuas, which is a lot for or dam of 7 champion Chihuahuas, which is a lot for the breed. Yeah, those ones kind of, and I just worked down a little bit at a time from that bitch. Like I didn't go buy a bunch of different bitches. I worked to develop kind of a bitch line first.
Fellow breeders, see what your breeding program has been missing with Easy Whelp modular whelping boxes. From the durable Easy Classic design to the spacious Easy Classic Tall, Easy Whelp sets a new standard for premium design and performance. Their innovative models are developed for simple setup and maximum safety, with features like integrated safety rails to protect your next generation. The smooth, hygienic surface allows for quick wipe downs to maintain a sanitary environment. The new windowed wall option provides the next level of safety, confidence, and convenience. No tools are required for assembly, which comes in handy if time is short in those critical moments. Elevate your breeding program today. Visit easywhelp.com. In researching the Darton pedigrees behind your dogs, they look to be quite tightly line bred. However, looking at your pedigrees, they look a little looser. Would you say that's accurate?
It is actually pretty accurate, although it's interesting, you say that. I was looking at a pedigree evaluator the other day, and Dartan Grand Slam on average is in most of my pedigrees over 50 times in 10 generations. So while they might look a little bit looser, my approach to breeding has more been family, I would say, than direct line breeding. And part of that is because we really have lost some genetic diversity in the breed. And so while they may not look super close the first 3 generations, if you go back a couple more, it's lather, rinse, repeat.
So, Kristi, were there specific breeding strategies or theories that you were applying to your breedings as you were establishing your bloodline? Or were you truly looking for just the best match for each of your bitches?
I always remember early on, and still people always say, well, you should breed like to like as far as phenotype goes. Well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because I'm like, if I don't like what I have, then why would I breed like to like? I'm just setting something that I don't want. So I sort of have a mental algorithm that I use when I do breedings, which it's kind of hard to explain, but I try to know as much as I can about the dogs in a pedigree, and I try to think about all of the features that are there, all of the different type elements, movement, style of dog. And my brain kind of takes all of those and just averages them out. And my goal in a litter is to get one that meets what my goals are, that's identifiable to what I really love. And if I get throwaways, that's fine. Finally, in the last 5 years, I would say that I've developed, like, you can see a knockout dog and know it's a knockout dog. And I did that really with not almost ever breeding like to like. It was what I selected that mattered, not so much what I bred.
So, on that topic of selection, let's talk about stud dog selection, which is obviously a critical part of any successful breeding program. What do you look for in a stud dog? And maybe what do you avoid?
It really depends on what I'm working on at any given point in time. I've had a lot of success kind of modeling what what Darwin did is he would have a stud dog and he would actually kind of breed it to everything and you get a feel for what that dog produces. Chihuahuas are a funny breed. They don't breed true. You can have a dog directly in front of you. It can be line bred till it's blue in the face, and you could breed it to its sister, and you'd be like, "What in the world is that?" um, the first best in show bitch that I bred, a multiple best in show bitch, her sister is probably the ugliest dog I've ever bred. And that was actually a really close breeding. I mean, I don't have words for how she's 10 pounds, she's undershot, she's fiddle fronted, not a pretty bitch. And people said to me, why didn't you repeat that breeding? And I'm like, I'm not sure which one was one in a million. And I didn't want to find out because the other one was so ugly.
When you do look to outcross, what are you looking for? Is it typically for virtues that you're chasing? Is it away from faults? Is it trying to go to a certain pedigree that you know clicks with your own?
I always look for virtues. Every dog has faults, especially in a toy breed. You're going to have a lot of faults. And they don't make the dog, their virtues do. So for me, it's always what can I find that has the virtues that I'm looking to bring in? And then, of course, when you go back to selection, making sure that when I'm selecting puppies that, I bred to those outcross dogs, making sure that I select dogs with the virtues that are in line with why I did it in the first place.
Let's go a little deeper on selection. Get some of your insights on that. I guess first, just within your own breeding program, how do you objectively evaluate your puppies, your dogs to select the individuals you want to move forward with?
There's certain baseline traits that I need in every dog that I have. I have to have a beautiful, large, luminous round eye. It can't be bulgy. You can't have a lot of white showing. The eye is so important. You've got to have a large ear. I've given and taken on ear flare because it's sometimes you've got to give somewhere. I've got to have a good top line, a good tail and tail set. And for me, I've got to have a front that's well set under the dog. But those are kind of like when I look at just a baseline of what I'm selecting for, those things kind of are pretty consistent and always have been things that I've selected for.
Does your selection process vary at all when looking at an outcross litter?
It's very rare that I'll make an exception to those basic traits. Pretty much like I want those things to be there as and I think that that's why I benefit from, say, bringing a stud dog in and using them a bunch of times because I can say, well, I got the virtues I was seeking and I kept the things that I didn't want to lose.
So you've talked about the things that are kind of your non-negotiables, the things that are most important to you. If you could describe for our audience, what does a knockout Chihuahua look like?
A knockout Chihuahua is definitely very self-important. You look at them and their face is saucy, which means that you wonder, what are they up to? I always say that a dog that has the correct facial features, even when they're sleeping, they look naughty. They're really supposed to be kind of this impudent, self-important little dog. And those I would say are the biggest things. I want a dog that has a beautiful eye and ear for sure. And tails have always been a big thing for me. There's been a lot of kind of curly tails that you'll see in the breed, and it's like, no, that can't fly here. I really want a good tail, good top line. But I mean, a knockout Chihuahua is always going to be compact. It's going to be swift moving, alert, and then just have that natural sauciness that asleep or awake, they look just kind of impudent and naughty.
Here at the Better Breeder Institute, we offer a full suite of digital resources and services developed to educate, support, and promote purebred conservation dog breeders. From free online tools like the Better Breeder Directory and Stud Dog Register, to our growing curriculum of courses, including Website Academy and Business Basics. We offer professional digital services, including email marketing and website design on our world-class Ultimate Breeder platform. Plus, we offer the Better Breeder Certification Program to distinguish purebred conservation breeders who breed to the standard and produce healthy, beautiful, and predictable puppies. We certify breeders who raise the bar with their ethics and breeding practices. At the Better Breeder Institute, we have the missing link to transform your purebred breeding program and achieve your highest goals. Learn more at betterbreeder.org. So, Kristi, I'd like to learn a little bit more about your dogs and the important ones that really made themselves special to the knockout story, special to the breed. Who are those dogs?
I think probably the first very notable Chihuahua that I showed of my own breeding was Knockout White Owl, which was Izzy. White Owl was a Piper daughter, which Piper was Knockout Fireball, the bitch that we talked about a little bit earlier. And Izzy was kind of sort of unexpected. She came at a point where I had realized that it was a lot harder to make what I wanted to make than I thought it was going to be. All of a sudden, there it was. Kind of just it I remember watching this puppy thinking, like, that's so much of what I was hoping to create, and there she is. I probably started showing her a little bit too young. She was kind of different from everything in the ring. I think often what I show is different from what's in the ring. The first time that I showed White Owl, I took her to a specialty, the Land Lincoln Chihuahua Club, and I showed her in sweepstakes. I no longer show in sweepstakes, by the way, but I showed her in sweepstakes. There were 4 bitches in her class. There was 3 little red bitches that crawled on their belly, and there was Izzy that never put a foot wrong, and we went 4th of 4. I was like, "What just happened?" She went on to get best of opposite to best of breed in the specialty under the actual bud, and I think did the same thing the next day. And then I did not show her again until the national where she won best bred by, and then I finished her, I think, the following weekend. No, I finished her, yeah, the following weekend at a California specialty. And at that point, she had done really well. The first time out of the classes, she won best of variety and made the cut in group. And these were all under judges that, like, at that point, I didn't know anybody. They didn't know me. The bitch really did it on her own. So I kind of decided at that point, okay, I would like to try to see what this bitch can do. And I really don't know how it really happened. I remember that there was a show in Utah in May, and I don't think we had shown a whole lot at that point. And there was the number 1 dog at the time, the number 1 dog from the year before. It was the number 1 dog so far, and she beat it all 4 days. And they came in and tried to buy her. And so from that show weekend on, it was like she just caught on fire. All of a sudden, she was winning groups. She was winning another group. We then went to the national and she won both the regional and the national. And then we went to a show in Arizona and she won her first 2 best in shows. And it kind of just, she went from in May, I don't think she was ranked, to she finished the year number 1. And picked up 2 more best in shows early the next year, and then I tried to breed her, and that was a disaster. So she was really, really great in the show ring and not so good as a producer. But I think that she really kind of helped establish a look that I wanted to be recognized as knockout. She
Sure.
was a good representative of characteristics that are important to me and still are important to me.
And certainly put you on the map.
Yeah, for sure, which I wish wasn't really a thing, but it is. So one of the dogs that wasn't really shown a whole lot, but was a very notable producer, still is a notable producer, was Knockout Captain America. At this point, I believe he sired 42 US champions. He has a phenomenal temperament. He absolutely loves everybody. And although he really isn't line bred, is this dog that for whatever reason, you can tell that a puppy is his. You can tell that a grand puppy is his. You can tell that a great grand puppy is his. I was at a specialty recently in California and I saw a lady sitting there with a little dog on her lap. And I look over and I'm like, I feel like that has my dog behind it. I feel like that dog definitely has my dog behind it. And it was like the great, great, great grandsire. It's just that was one of those dogs that I do feel like really, as far as production goes, he has been my top producing stud dog, and he went as far as grand champion, and that was it.
I don't know that I've ever had that feeling with a great grandkid, but it is like, you walk into a show and it's just like you see something, it's like, yeah, that's mine.
It was crazy because I looked at the dog and I'm like, I looked at the name and the catalog and I thought, there's no way that that dog would probably have my dog behind it. But it looked exactly like his puppies do. It didn't look kind of like his puppies do. It looked like it could have been his. So the Knockout Captain America dog ended up being the grandsire of my next all breed best in show winner, which was Knockout Never Say Never. He was shown by a good friend of mine, also an owner handler. She did amazing things with him. She never ran an ad for him. She did it all by herself. And he was winner's dog at the national, and that was with me showing him, and I kinda said to her, "I don't really like this dog. Can you take it off my hands?" It's just, we did not get along well. We had very different temperaments.
And kudos to you for recognizing that.
I just was like, I'm not gonna enjoy showing this dog," and so my really good friend Chris Specht took him, and he was number 1 in 2018, I believe. So I had number 1 in was White Owl in 2017, and then number 1 in 2018 was Never Say Never. So, and it's kind of fun because they both tag back to those initial 2 bitches, which were Firecracker and Fireball. So the next probably most winning Chihuahua that I have produced was Elbury Best in Show winner, Knockout Pretty Little Liar. She probably so far is my overall favorite. Feel like she is the best representative of just the overall balance and type and soundness and temperament of all of the ones thus far, up until her. She's still my bed dog. She's 6 years old, and unlike my first best in show bitch, White Owl, she has actually produced really well for me. She just gave me a litter of 6 puppies. She's only 5.5 pounds, 6 puppies, and, it looks like they should all finish, which we've actually not had a bitch in breed history in Chihuahuas that has also gotten the Register of Merit, top producing dam. So we need 5 for that. So sitting there going, "Don't fall apart." But yeah, so Pretty Little Liar was both great in the ring. She was Westminster Best of Variety in, I think, 2022 and 2024. She was number 1 breed and all breed in 2021. She never won a national. She got as far as select. And then I would say the next kind of my current show dog, which is Knockout Looks Like the Real McCoy. He won the 2024 national specialty. Currently ranked number 2, but we haven't been able to show super heavily just because we've got a bunch of family stuff going on. But he, I believe, will probably end up being both a really great show dog, and hopefully producer as well.
Have you used him yet?
I have used him. So he's the sire of the 6. His very first litter that he sired, one of those puppies is in a show home. 2 of those puppies are in a show home from the first litter, and they're young. Because he was only 15 months when he won the national last year.
Okay.
He's not even 2 yet. He's a group winner, multiple group placing. He's won 6 specialties this year. He is a lot of fun. I actually just recently took him to Norway, and we showed at their national specialty and the International Chihuahua Club specialty, and he won best in show at the International Chihuahua Club specialty. So that was really fun. It was fun to see that he was competitive, not just, here in the States, but also kind of internationally. So he has sired, at this point, I would say we're pretty close to where by the end of next year, he should be a top producer.
Elevate your breeding program with Easy Whelp Solutions. Easy Whelp's innovative modular whelping boxes set a new standard for premium design and performance. Their washable, eco-friendly pads are more absorbent than the competition, keeping your whelping area clean and hygienic. And Easy Whelp Heat Combo ensures your puppies stay warm and healthy. Easy Whelp also carries a full line of whelping products, including box liners, feeding stations, whelping bundles, and video monitoring systems. Raise the bar in your breeding program. Visit easywhelp.com today. So, Kristi, breeding toy dogs comes with its own set of challenges. I've seen you reference that when breeding Chihuahuas, you spend more time in the valleys than in the top of the mountains. Can you talk to some of those challenges that you've had to overcome in your breeding program?
Well, for sure. I don't know that you ever really overcome them. You learn to live with them. You can have the most beautiful bitch in the world and she just doesn't produce. You can have a beautiful stud dog that also doesn't produce. But I think that the hardest part is probably the neonatal loss, struggling to keep puppies alive, losing sleep. Actually, kind of going back to it, Knockout Never Say Never was one of my success stories. That litter came down with kennel cough, and I lost one of the puppies in the litter. And I remember sitting in the bathroom with the shower on and the room being filled with steam and like holding that puppy upside down and like blood was pouring out of his nose. He was so sick. And, a bigger puppy I think probably would have handled it a lot better, but Chihuahuas are just so tiny and fragile. And I had them in a little tiny homemade incubator. I managed to keep them alive. I don't know how. And just those things are not unusual. They happen more often than not, unfortunately. There's a lot of C-sections, there's a lot of expense. It's really expensive to breed Chihuahuas, and at the end of the day, you've got 2, 3 puppies if you're lucky. And people are like, "They're little, they should be cheap, right?" And it's like, "No, that's not really how it works."
From your perspective, what is the proper use of health testing in a breeding program?
So I think health testing is a wonderful tool. I think that there's been some confusion about how to use it as a tool. I think without really taking the time to understand that a health test doesn't have to be perfect. The result doesn't have to be perfect. It's about the information. When you say health tested to me, it means that you've taken the time to make the information public so that, in 15, 20 years, when somebody's trying to learn about the dogs in my pedigrees, they can pull up every single one of those dogs and see the results. I register all of the results, good or bad. I don't think that dogs have to be perfect to be a part of a breeding program. I think that it's really, really common for people to think that. And I think actually sort of bottlenecked into some issues in the Chihuahua breed inadvertently, fixing one issue, robbing Peter to pay Paul. And I have done probably more extensive health testing on my Chihuahuas than anybody in the world. And the deal that I made with myself when I added tests that weren't normal, like we do leg perthes and hips on my Chihuahuas, I do echocardiograms, I do DNA testing. But when I add a test that isn't standard for the breed for 15 years, I will not let myself eliminate because of it. I have to use it as information only because I can't go find another Chihuahua that has that testing. So I could, remove a dog from my breeding program and go breed to one that has the exact same problem. And the difference is I just didn't know. So I would rather, the devil that I know. And that to me is what health testing is all about. It's knowing what you're breeding, not about breeding perfection.
Kristi, as a highly accomplished breeder in your breed, can you speak to the importance of attending your breed's national specialty?
I think when you go back to just even the beginning of my story, me sitting ringside, and I went to see a specific kennel and bloodline. Like I was ready to buy a bitch from that bloodline. And sitting there and seeing the dogs, seeing them firsthand, nobody can Photoshop a dog that's right in front of you. They're right there, they're live, and it gives you the opportunity to really kind of see pedigrees before they become pedigrees. And I think that's invaluable. The more dogs that you can touch, the more dogs that you can see, the more information you can file away about dogs that may someday be part of your family, it's invaluable.
Current breeders are having to deal with several new challenges, including things like there just being so many fewer breeders, contracting gene pools, and the loss of major bloodlines in many breeds. Do you have any ideas or theories for how today's breeder can succeed in face of these new challenges?
I feel like it's really important to be intentional about breeding for a family of dogs. I think the trend that I tend to observe is that people try to breed for a winner, and there's not really any longevity put into that plan. Like, they breed this beautiful dog and they don't have any idea where to go with it. They don't really know how they got there. And so I think just being intentional about actually building a pedigree, building a family, building a line. But that's harder and harder to do because you have all of these pedigrees that were bred just to create a show dog.
So at this point in your breeding career, what do you view as the most significant challenge in your breed?
Honestly, just getting enough puppies to select for the quality that I want, as well as making sure that in doing that, I'm not compromising the quality of family companions that I'm producing. Because sometimes you're like, well, this is just an absolutely beautiful, outstanding dog, but it probably really wouldn't make a great family companion. And so those dogs, you really have to use very judiciously. I never say never. I mean, you literally can't. But I think that that is one of the biggest challenges is trying to just get enough to select from, but also being cognizant of their quality as companions too.
So the other side of the same coin, what has you optimistic about the future of your breed?
That's a tough question right now because we really have lost a lot of breeders. We've lost a lot of bloodlines. I can count the number of breeders that are actually breeding a bloodline in Chihuahuas on one hand, and I don't need all the fingers. I think that the cost to breed them is so astronomical if you do it right and you do it well and you're doing it with quality bloodlines. I think that that really is the biggest challenge right now. It is how do we go forward? Because it sort of feels like there's not a lot of ways forward right now.
So what do you think your fellow breeders should be most focused on?
Breeding, like actually producing puppies, getting dogs in the ring. What I get requests for are for specials. They want a dog that they can show for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. And while I completely support people wanting to be in the ring and wanting to show, and I think that we need those people in the ring, I actually will not sell a dog to somebody if they don't intend to breed it. Like, it can't have open papers unless you're going to breed it because I don't want to waste a good dog if you're not going to put it back in the gene pool.
Kristi, what do you feel is the most notable accomplishment of your breeding program?
This might be kind of silly, but whenever I get an email or a text message or a phone call or a picture from my pet homes and they tell me that the dog is happy and it's healthy and it's 12 years old, it's, 14 years old, it's whatever. That really is my most notable accomplishment. And that may seem silly, but at the end of the day, I do breed mostly pets. So for them to be good pets, that really was my goal coming into it. The fact that I get to be competitive in the show ring while I do that is just kind of a fun perk for me because, ultimately they mostly all end up pets.
Kristi, if there was one master breeder you'd like to see featured on this show, who would it be and why?
I think one of the breeders that I have a lot of respect for is Armando with the Min Pins. I feel like what I've observed of him as a breeder, um, it reflects somebody that really has built a family and has built quality and has done so, really just as another breeder, owner, handler like me. And he's also been very successful in the ring, but he is somebody that I would love to hear kind of his brain picked.
Is there a breeder you'd like to see featured on the Better Breeder Chronicles? Then go to betterbreeder.org/nominate to let us know. We are looking for master breeders, whether they are highly acclaimed or they work quietly in anonymity to move their breed forward. Better Breeder Chronicles puts those individuals on their rightful pedestal and shares their story with the purebred dog world. Nominate your most respected breeder today. Go to betterbreeder.org/nominate. Kristi, to that aspiring breeder who's listening to the Knockout story today, if there was one thing you'd hope they'd take from your story that could help them in their own journey, what would it be?
I think that I would tell them to figure out what's most important to them because there's a lot of noise. there's so many opinions. The better you do, the more of them there are. And if you try to make everybody happy, you're not going to end up happy with the direction you're going. So I think really figuring out where your priorities are and making them happen, making them a reality. That would be my advice, because the noise gets louder and louder the further along that you got.
And finally, after your breeding days are done, how do you want breed history to remember Knockout Chihuahuas?
I hope that my dogs are remembered for being typey, for being healthy, for being beautiful moving, for being compact. I hope that my dogs are remembered for being able to reproduce themselves. Kind of that dog that happened as a fluke early on in Captain America, where I mean, 4 generations later, and it's like, oh, there he is. I hope that kind of the knockout legacy will one day be that, and that's a work in progress. I hopefully have many years left ahead of me to work on that to really try to create that family of dogs. But that is my hope. My hope is that I create something that you'll be able to see for a long time.
Kristi, if breeders want to learn more about your dogs and your breeding program, do you have a website or where can they go?
I do have a website. I try my best to keep it up to date. I'm not always the best at it. I'm trying to be better. But knockoutchihuahuas.com. I don't do a lot of other social media. I have a Facebook account where I'll post dog wins. But I would say my website is usually up to date as far as who my current breeding dogs are. And then my Facebook is pretty current with wins and show photos and whatnot.
Kristi, this conversation has been outstanding. Thank you for sharing the Knockout story with us today.
For sure. I really enjoyed it.
That's it for this chapter of the Better Breeder Chronicles. We hope you found the Knockout story with Kristi Green captivating and that it will inspire you to pursue your highest goals in your breeding program. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. At the Better Breeder Institute, we encourage all conservation dog breeders to embrace your fellow breeders as partners and collaborators rather than competitors and rivals. With the unprecedented challenges we all face today, successful breeding programs can no longer operate on an island. Our purebred dog breeder community must come together with everyone pulling in the same direction. This is crucial if we're going to successfully preserve and advance our beloved breeds. I'm Matt Stelter, closing the book for today. Best wishes to you and your breeding program from all of us at the Better Breeder Institute. We'll see you in the next chapter. Take care.